This podcast is a member of the Place to Be Nation family. Visit us at placetobenation.com, the only place to be in your pop culture world.
This is It Was a Thing on TV.
Spoiler number one is Dr. Lee frowns. It stinks.
What is going on? What is going on?
Okay, Place to Be Nation Pop, Greg here. Now, before we start the episode, I should note that there was some audio issues during the recording of this episode. Mike said to me that he believes he had problems with the quality of his mic during the recording of the two episodes, but I gotta be honest, I listened to the episodes and I didn't notice anything wrong, so I just thought I'd point that out in case Mike's audio is bad or anything, so. Okay, alright, let's get into our two shows this week, which cover the various spin-offs and related shows to Sanford and Son. So here we go, with part one of Into the Sanfordverse.
Episode 93, Submissions 033 and 496. Into the Sanfordverse, part one. In this episode, we're going to look at the three spin-offs of Sanford and Son, and what happened to Sanford and Son after its final episode in 1977. So everybody knows about Sanford and Son. Sanford and Son has been around since 1972. Didn't have a terribly long run on NBC. 5 seasons, not bad at all. But there's reasons why it only lasted 5 years, which we'll get to later in this episode. And Sanford and Son, in case you don't know, is based off the UK show Steptoe and Son. The show was, beyond popular almost immediately. Reasons for that? Maybe it's because it was the first true comedy or sitcom with an African-American lead that wasn't like totally disparaging. See Amos and Andy?
Yep. It was one of the first, if not the first, sitcoms with a predominantly African American cast that didn't portray caricaturism or minstrelsy.
The first series would have been Julia back in 1968.
Oh, my mistake.
It's okay. The only reason I know that is because I had to write a paper about it back 18 years ago when I was in college. But yeah, the first series would have been Julia in 1968. This might have been one of the first with an African-American male lead. Sanford and Son had a very diverse cast, and not just from the African-American standpoint. Two main characters that you saw quite a bit were Julio Fuentes, who's played by Gregory Sierra, and if you don't know who Gregory Sierra is, as Chico would say, you're listening to the wrong podcast.
First season of Barney Miller, Chano, hello!
In addition to Barney Miller, Gregory Sierra, well, if you remember in a couple of previous episodes, I mentioned Joe Mantegna played like 1-1 and Lori Faso played 1-2.
Oh, I know. I know where this is going.
No, he wasn't 1-3.
He was the general, wasn't he?
He was the leader of the Wands, yes.
He was the generalissimo of the Wands, yeah.
Yes, he was. He was the big one.
I knew that name sounded familiar.
Oh, yeah. Another name that should sound awfully familiar is the person who played Ah Chu. Oh, isn't that cute? Ah Chu. Ha ha ha. He sneezed.
Oh.
Yeah. That's not racist at all.
No, not at all. But that character was played by, oh, I know Greg is sitting. He's not going to be for long. Pat Morita!
Oh! Yes!
Yeah, okay, yeah, you know Pat Morita. He was only on Happy Days and some little movie called The Karate Kid.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, you've heard of him.
Hey, Greg, he was like on 3 weeks of Match Game. You remember him now?
He's on 3 weeks of Match Game.
Yeah, he was on 3
Am
weeks.
I wrong? Am I wrong?
And he was on previous installment, Break the Bank 76.
And future installment, O'Hara.
Oh, mercy. We're milking this one for all it's worth.
Yes, we are, sir.
But also, I mean, you had more diversity beyond that. I mean, you did have Caucasian actors.
Yep.
You had
Howard Platt.
Poppy. And we talked about Howard Platt previously, because Howard Platt, try saying this 5 times fast. Howard Platt played the pilot on, I think this is like episode 15, Flying High.
Woo! Oh!
Yeah, he was the pilot on Flying High. So this isn't the first time we're talking about Howard Platt. Nope. And of course, other people on that show. I mean, again, diversity is overwhelming. Hal Williams. How can we keep Hal Williams off of here? Everybody remembers him from 227.
I remember him from future installment, The Sinbad Show.
Oh, there you go. There's a deep cut.
Was it? Wait.
Only cut I know.
Wasn't that his late night show attempt?
No, The Sinbad Show with Salma Hayek and Ray J.
Okay. Oh, I'm thinking when he hosted Vibe. Okay, never mind.
Well, getting back to our little tale here. So the series was an absolute smash. And in 1975, late 1975, the first spinoff came. And this actually falls under a category we've talked about in the past, and I think we're going to be doing a show about in the future, which I consider the wrong character got the spinoff. I mean, I love Grady as much as anybody on Sanford and Son. Whitman Mayo is absolutely friggin' hilarious.
He is a godsend, yes.
Oh,
but yeah. I don't think he's the character that should have gotten the spinoff. I think that should have been Lamont. I should have been DeMond Wilson. But that's just my speculation or my beliefs. But Grady, let's talk about Grady. But you know what? I want to play the theme song first and give the details.
Okay.
Grady aired on NBC from December 4th of 1975 to March 11th of 1976 for a total of 10 episodes. Feel about that theme song. It's like I want to like it, but it's like really frigging annoying.
Yeah, it's not a bop. It's not even a ditty. It's not even a jaunty little what's his face. It's just it's no Quincy Jones, that's for sure.
So Grady, what was Grady about? Well, besides Grady. Grady actually left Watts and moved in with his daughter and her family in Westwood, another part of Los Angeles. And it was basically the hijinks of that family now. The daughter, his granddaughter, his grandson.
It's what Life with Lucy would be about 10 years later.
It's basically, and again, another parallel, both in terms of the family structure or the show structure, but also the wrong character got sitcom syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
This is the Cleveland show.
Yep.
Think about it. I
am thinking about it. I'm thinking about it.
Because at least before Cleveland and his family returned to Quahog, you met you met the stepdaughter, you met the new Cleveland Brown, because remember, he was a little twerpy back in the early 2000s, and now he's a very robust gentleman.
There's actually a story behind that, but I will not go into it right now.
Yeah, we'll
Good
save
deal.
That. We'll save that for the episode when we do give the spinoff to the wrong character.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so Grady in this case is with his daughter and his grandchildren, and also Grady's son-in-law, who happens to pop up and make a very crucial appearance, let's say, in the one episode that's online. There's one episode, and it's actually halfway decent.
Oh, it's good. It's
I
not that
really
bad.
liked it.
I
It's
like
okay.
it.
It's okay. If you can sit through 3 seasons of the Cleveland Show, you can sit through 1 episode of Grady.
And the whole, and we'll get to the episodes in a second. We'll talk about this episode, but yeah, I mean, it had its moments. It was sort of lame at some points, in my opinion, but how it came around, like the last 10 minutes or so, or the last 8 minutes, was brilliant. I thought it was brilliantly done. It came from the same people who did Sanford and Son, so I'm not totally surprised. And by those people, we're talking about beyond Bud York, and we're talking about Saul Turtletaub and Bernie Orenstein, who are some names that we've talked about in the past. And actually, Saul Turtletaub is still with us because, as I mentioned not that long ago, within the last month or so, he did Gilbert Gottfried's podcast when he did a Comedy Writers Roundtable.
Oh.
And also another thing I noticed, and this is from Insomniac Television viewing, Saul Turtletaub, before Sanford and Son, actually was a writer for the first couple of years, or at least the first year, I should say, of the Carol Burnett Show.
Oh.
Back in '67, yeah. So there were some reasons why this got canceled, and we'll get to those in a moment. There's one glaring reason, and, well, actually there's two, but one is because of the other.
Of course, you have Grady Wilson, played by the incomparable Whitman Mayo.
Absolutely incomparable.
And his daughter, Ellie Marshall, nay Ellie Wilson, played by Carol Cole.
Carol Cole, who is unfortunately no longer with us, and really she did not do anything after this. This is her last credit on IMDb, sad to say.
Yeah.
Well, her last credit in terms of acting.
Yeah.
Looks like she did some documentaries about Nat King Cole in the late 80s and early 90s, but this is her last acting credit.
Mm-hmm. And then you have her husband, Hal, played by Joe Morton, who is known primarily as that guy from That Thing.
Yeah, and wasn't he also Miles Dyson in Terminator 2?
Not only that, he was also Kerry Washington's daddy in Scandal.
Ooh.
Oh, there you go.
Oh, and he was in, he played Silas Stone in Batman v Superman and Justice League.
So yeah, he is a classic case of that guy from That Thing.
Yeah, and you'd also recognize him. There's some other shows that he did. He did Law and Order. He did Smallville. The list goes on and on. But yeah, he's one of those people. And I should also add, he was also in A Different World.
Oh yeah, I remember that. I remember that that little that episode's stretch strand. Anyway.
Yeah. So yeah, he's a good case of that guy from that show, but he isn't just somebody who makes appearances here and there. He's been on many shows over the decades. But then we get to Grady's granddaughter, Lori, who's played by Roseanne Caton.
She of guest appearances on feature installments. That's My Mama and Jason of Star Command.
But she also did have some appearances on St. Elsewhere back in, looks like about the third season.
Yeah, opposite of Denzel Washington.
Probably.
Yeah. Men of a certain age would recognize her as Miss September 1978.
Speaking of Miss September 1978, she actually also made an appearance as a Playboy Playmate. And, we remember this episode because we talked about it months and months ago. She was one of the Playmates on former installment Pink Lady. If you remember the sketch where Pink Lady was with Hugh Hefner trying to be Playmates.
Yes, sir,
Yeah.
I do.
Oh,
He was in that skit. That sketch.
Oh.
Yeah, it's all tying back in. Everything ties in incredibly around here. Oh, and speaking of tying in incredibly, not with a show that we're going to cover, but the grandson of Whitman Mayo. This is a name. This is a name from later in the 70s. And yes, this is great. Haywood Nelson. Don't tell me you don't know who Haywood Nelson is.
Dwayne from What's Happening.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Dwayne from What's Happening and What's Happening Now.
Yep.
Absolutely correct. He was in this show. Yeah, and he'd actually be in What's Happening like less than a year later because What's Happening started in 76.
And he was great in that one episode I saw.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, he did a great job. Absolutely. But now we're going to get into the actual episodes, and we're going to have a repeated name that we talked about, I want to say it was probably about 30, 35 episodes ago in episode 1. So episode 1 is titled, Be It Ever So Humble. Be it ever so humble, there's no place like home. Just not with the bad singing or the last half of that.
Mm-hmm.
Grady and his family move into a house, the former tenant of which refuses to leave. And in this episode, you actually have an appearance by Redd Foxx as Fred Sanford, because he helps Grady move. Sort of.
Yeah, let me help you with your luggage there, dummy.
Yeah, he helped by bringing Grady's luggage.
That's our Sanford. That's our Fred Sanford. Always willing to do the bare minimum for our friends.
He did just enough. But on this episode, playing George Kosinski, you guys know this name, George Zunza.
Whoa!
Yeah, from Open All Night, Open All Night,
Open all night.
Open all night.
Exactly.
Yeah, he was on this show?
He was on this show.
He was on the first episode, and also he appeared on another episode. IMDb says he was on 2 episodes.
Okay.
And speaking of, not necessarily 2 episodes, but the second episode. And this is the episode, the second episode that George Zunza appears in. It's called The Driving Force. And if you watch the opening credits to Grady, you see him taking a whole bunch of buses. He must have a lot of transfer passes because he must take, I'd say, 4 buses in the opening credits, minimum.
He must be a real big fan of the LA transit system.
He is all about the green living. Well, before Ed Beckley Jr. was, anyway.
I wouldn't even say necessarily the green. Unfortunately, it's pretty common in the inner city to take buses like that because you can't afford a car.
And also if you are getting on in that age, so.
Right. So Grady is tired of riding the bus and decides that he wants to learn how to drive. His family, however, has concerns. After passing his test, he overhears his family talking. To make sure they don't worry, he tells them he didn't take the test and resolves not to drive. That, I believe, is an issue we're going to talk about in the next episode, because there's stuff I mentioned to Greg before we did the show, which may have some relevance here as to why he will stick to the bus instead of driving on his own. So episode 3 is called Merry Birthday, Happy Christmas. So you may be like, no, it's Happy Birthday, Merry Christmas. Well, guess what? Grady's birthday is on Christmas.
Ah.
Yeah, and actually Ellie plans a surprise birthday party for Grady, while Hal keeps him occupied at a local bar. Now, in the first episode, we find out that Grady is 67 years old. So he's turning 68 in this episode. Do you know how old Grady, Whitman Mayo, was in real life at this time?
42.
Little older, 45.
So he basically Sophia Petrillo the role.
I think he's Sophia Petrillo it plus maybe a couple of years. He's playing a character that's 23 years older than him. Either A, that's great acting, or B, when he was 45, he looked like crap. Yeah. And I'm just saying this. I'm 45, and I don't look like crap. I don't have gray hair, and I'm sure my dear girlfriend will agree because she gave us 5 stars on Apple Podcast. Thank you, sweetie. And also in this episode, making an appearance, a guest appearance, we talked about Fred Sanford appearing in the first episode. Well, guess what? In the third episode, we have another Sanford and Son cast member coming by, LaWanda Page, Aunt Esther.
Yay! Woo! Aunt Esther.
So I think we're seeing a little trend here of co-stars from Sanford and Son making the trip to Westwood to see Grady.
It's just a short bus drive.
Well, it's a short bus drive, but also to boost the ratings a little bit.
Yeah. Okay.
You know, seeing people from the mothership, if you will.
Yeah.
And then episode 4 is called Grady's Night In. Grady turns sleuth to track down the thief who stole 2 rolls of quarters from the Grady kitchen. Oh, he's putting his detective cap on.
Oh, boy.
And $20 back then, well, I mean, $20 is $20, but still, back then, that would have been a good chunk of change.
Uh-huh.
Oh, and we have special guests galore. Holy shnikes. Appearing for his 3rd episode. IMDb said he was in 2 episodes. He's in a 3rd. George Zunza appears again. But then, get ready, because we have 2 more Sanford and Son cast members appearing. And then another, just out of left field, oh my gosh, this person was on this show. You had Don Bexley appearing, who's Bubba.
Bubba what? Bubba Hexley? Bubba Wexley?
Bubba Bexley. Yeah, and if you remember Sanford and Son, I think Bubba might be the second funniest supporting character next to Grady.
Nice.
I want my daddy's records. If Ben Ingram listens, he'll get that reference. And then also another person from Sanford and Son, you had Nathaniel Taylor, and I'm going to tell you, he was probably the person that took the quarters because he was a bit of a shady character.
Rollo was shady.
Rollo was shady, a little bit of a kleptomaniac. And yeah, he played Rollo, in case you didn't notice me and Chico calling him Rollo. He made a number of appearances on Sanford and Son as a shyster, let's say. I think that's a good word to use. But now, wait. Now, this is where it gets off the wall. This last guest. Play a character named Martin. Robbie Wrist, cousin Oliver from Brady Bunch.
What?
Robbie Wrist played a character named Martin on this episode. Robbie Wrist, cousin Oliver from the Brady Bunch.
Cousin Oliver from the Brady Bunch. And also one of the Ninja Turtles in one of the movies. I do not remember which one, and I do not remember which one.
Wasn't he? He was in the first one, wasn't he?
Yeah.
But still, cousin Oliver appeared on this show. That's all you need to know.
Wow.
Did he steal the nickels?
Like I said, the episode isn't out there. This isn't the one episode that's out there. I would not be surprised if it was Rollo. But, you know, it could be one of those twists where in the end, it was cousin Oliver after all.
Uh-huh.
Well, again...
If Robbie Wrist is listening, maybe he can clear this up.
Well, or hey, you know what? Maybe if Sony's listening, they can put this show either on DVD or they can put it on Crackle.
I'm glad. You know what? They did release Grady, the best of Grady, which has every episode except for Happy Birthday, Merry Christmas. Or Merry Birthday, Happy... You know what I'm trying to say here.
Right. Yeah. And okay, so I guess that means that I might have to do some eBay Prices Right research in a few minutes. Tee hee.
Episode 5.
I guess that's a no. Okay.
Night School.
Yeah, this is the episode that's on YouTube.
Absolutely, yes.
Okay. Because I don't know if you guys know this, but Hal is a teacher. He is an American history teacher. Yeah. Now, Hal has a new student in his American history class. I think he was a teacher at UCLA.
I thought he was just like a night school teacher.
Yeah, he has a new student. His father-in-law, Grady.
What? But that's not awkward. Your father-in-law is a student in your class.
What?
And the best part of this episode, guys. The best part of this episode was at the start. And Mike, you know what I'm talking about.
Oh, I know. They
did a parody of future installment, the Bicentennial Minute.
That was a good beginning to the show. As I mentioned before we started recording this episode, really the last 10 minutes, I thought were brilliant. Because what ended up happening, I don't want to spoil it, but, well, I am. Too bad. What ended up happening is Grady ended up getting a very low grade on the test. I mean, like a 5 out of 30. It was a horribly failing grade. And what happened is he put another person's name on his test, and he actually got 26 out of 30. He got a good grade. And then he took the fall for this older woman and got this failing grade. So he took her test, erased the name out, and then put his name. So he sort of took the fall, which is an interesting tactic, to say the least.
It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for him.
Like I said, the comedy is not bad in this episode. There's other factors as to why it only ran 10 episodes.
Like we said.
We'll get to that in a little bit. Episode 6, The Meter Man. Grady's scheme of feeding expired parking meters, then asking the car owners for reimbursement, earns him unwanted attention in the news. Well, I mean, that's going to happen if you put meters in there for people who are expired, and then, suddenly you're asking for compensation or some way of getting repayment. That's not cool. I know there's been stories of people who filled expired meters so people didn't get fines. That's cool, but actually going back and saying, hey, could you pay me the dollar and change I put in the meter? No bueno. And actually, we should also add, it wasn't just Grady putting the coins in the meters. It was Grady and his grandson Haywood.
So they were being nice guys. You know what? Somebody wants to put change in an expired meter nowadays, they would be lauded as an urban hero.
Absolutely. And we should note that playing herself, presumably as a news reporter, is Stephanie Edwards. Who's Stephanie Edwards?
Who's Stephanie Edwards?
Well, she has actually, in the past, commentated on the Tournament of Roses parade.
Oh, that's Stephanie Edwards!
Yes, I believe she's a fixture in LA local news.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, the person who wasn't Bob Eubanks. Got it.
Essentially, there you go. Yes. The person who is not Bob Eubanks. We should also add that she played a character named Angela on recent addition to our submission list, The Girl with Something Extra.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, with Sally Field and John Davidson.
You're welcome, by the way.
But I'll tell you this much. Stephanie, at the Rose Ball Parade, she was no Cord and Tish, let me tell you that.
Oh,
Okay.
jeez. Cord and Tish. Oh, no.
Next episode.
That takes us to episode 7, The Strike. Hal and his fellow teachers vote to go on strike.
Oh, no.
Yeah, well, that's the thing that comes with the profession. I haven't been in a strike yet, but we've been very close to striking probably at least 3 times in the 15 years I've been doing it. So, yeah, it's union power at its best.
Mm-hmm.
And enough of my political grandstanding about being a teacher. Oh, Robbie Wrist makes an appearance in this episode.
Oh, the Robbie Wrist.
The Robbie Wrist, who may or may not have taken the 2 rolls of quarters, he makes an appearance in this episode. So there you go. Episode 8, Bureaucracy. Grady takes on the government after he fails to receive several Social Security checks, and darn it, I'd do the same if I didn't get my money.
Mm-hmm.
And also, I mean, again, if Grady is 68 years old in this series, yeah, he's probably going to be living off of Social Security, especially if he's living with his daughter and her family.
Yep.
So it makes sense, and as long as he doesn't pull a Peter Griffin on the first episode of Family Guy and takes the overage from his Social Security checks and tosses out the Goodyear blimp, I think he'll be fine.
Well, it was either that or the spiked balls that said, "Forgive me, Lois."
Yeah.
Yeah. Episode 9, Grady takes a wife. Oh, Greg, get your woo ready. While waiting for Grady to return home from a trip to Las Vegas, Ellie falls asleep and dreams that Grady has brought home a bride, a Las Vegas circus performer. And actually, another description will get even more ooze from you guys. Ellie dreams that Grady marries not just a circus performer, a go-go dancer.
Ooh.
Yes. That's all you need to say is ooh.
Do we know who the go-go dancer is?
The only guest on this episode appears to be somebody named Norma Miller. Well, Norma Miller may not have been a go-go dancer because at the time of this appearance, she would have been 55 years old, 56 years old.
Okay, so we know it's not her.
It's feasible, but and unfortunately, Norma Miller is not with us anymore. She actually passed away a little bit under a year and a half ago at age 99.
Wow.
And she didn't have many credits to her name. She was on this episode. She actually made 3 appearances on Sanford and Son as 3 different characters. And really, that's pretty much it. There's not a whole lot on her IMDb resume. And that takes us to the final episode, The Weekend. Hal and Ellie have a chance for a second honeymoon after Grady takes the kids away for the weekend. Who doesn't like getting away for the weekend with the kids being taken care of by Grady?
Yeah.
I could make an obvious joke about the weekend, but yeah.
Well, there's a joke there about the weekend, but honestly, I think having Grady taking care of the kids for the weekend, that may rival Teddy on Bob's Burgers taking care of the kids when Bob and Linda are out of town.
Yep.
Yeah. So that's 10 episodes, and I mentioned there's 2 reasons why this did not succeed. Well, number 1 is ratings. Isn't it always ratings?
It's always ratings.
It's always ratings. And actually, here's how bad the ratings were.
How bad were the ratings?
Yeah, how awful were the ratings for this show?
Well, for the last week of January of 1976, out of 69 episodes that week,
Nice.
it came in 69th.
Nice.
Wow.
No, not nice because it finished last.
Yeah.
Not nice.
Not nice, but I know what you're saying. And then just a couple of weeks later, out of 65 shows, it came in not 65th,
64th?
62nd.
Oh,
Okay.
62nd. Yeah, it was 4 from the bottom. One of the shows below Grady that week was the show that followed it on the schedule after Grady, a show called Cop and the Kid. Never heard of it. Not a submission yet, but I'm sure we're diligently working on
Oh,
it.
I'm looking that up right now.
And then in March, first week of March, out of 68 shows, it was 67th. Behind, wait for it, Cop and the Kid.
nobody liked to watch Cop and the Kid, I guess. I get it.
Well, nobody liked watching Grady, but there's a big reason, and this is the second reason why it likely failed and had bad ratings. What was its primary competition? 2 shows. One that was in its second season at the time on ABC, a little show called Barney Miller.
Ooh.
Oh, it gets better, though. And on CBS, another little show which was on for, I think, about 5 seasons at this point, called The Waltons.
Ooh.
And then to make it even worse, listen to this. This is bad. It's bad, but it's good scheduling if you're trying to kill the competition. ABC had Barney Miller at 8 o'clock versus Grady and the Waltons. About 6 weeks after it premiered, Grady moved to 8:30, presumably to escape Barney Miller and all that. Well, that lasted for one episode, because guess what ABC put on at 8:30 the following week? Barney Miller.
Another Barney Miller.
No, they moved that Barney Miller.
Oh.
Yeah, they moved the original new episode of Barney Miller. So Grady could not escape the shadow of Barney Miller and the Waltons.
No one can ever escape the shadow of Barney Miller or the Waltons.
Yeah, so there's probably a big reason why the show failed, because it went up against a really good show in Barney Miller, a really young show in Barney Miller, and a venerable classic at that point in the Waltons.
Whew.
But we're not done talking about the Sanford verse yet. As we said, Sanford and Son was on until 1977, and it was still riding high, but ABC did a little maneuver. They actually got Redd Foxx away from NBC, away from Sanford and Son, and that's the reason the series ended. And they created a show just for Redd Foxx called the Redd Foxx Comedy Hour. And this, there's very little information about this online. I actually did quite a bit of searching for this, and I could not find much of anything. There's 2 episodes online, so it can be seen. But in terms of like a Wikipedia page, there's no Wikipedia page for this, believe it or not.
Yeah, actually, I have the page on IMDb.
And even the IMDb page doesn't have that much.
Yeah, all we know is that it started on September 15th, 1977, and it was taped at Studio 43 at Television City.
And I can give an approximate end date, again, from the little bit of research I was able to find. The Redd Foxx Hour ended sometime in early 78. I'm seeing like early January of 78 as a possible last episode date. So it didn't run for much more than 3.5, 4 months. So obviously that means maybe 13 episodes and done.
Perhaps.
It's very feasible because, you probably will have a rerun for Thanksgiving. You'll probably have a rerun for Christmas. So it may have been 13 and done. I don't want to sound like Marie Kondo, but it just didn't spark any joy. The one thing I liked is the set, or at least the opening set, when they reveal Redd Foxx, when they introduce him, the city skyline essentially disappearing, and then you see the letters REDD, giant, like 10-foot tall letters, rise, like stand up, like at a 90-degree angle from like a resting position.
Yeah, I think what it was the cityscape folded downwards to reveal.
Yeah, it looks like it folded downwards, but yeah, it disappeared essentially, layer by layer, like in 3 or 4 layers. But then you had these red brick, faux brick, obviously, because they weigh a ton if they're real bricks. Basically sit up from a flat position to an upright position, like going up 90 degrees. And then you had Redd Foxx entering through a door, a very, very wisely camouflaged door. I didn't even see it, at least when I first saw the footage. But, yeah, he came through the door. I thought that was an absolutely impressive start, an absolutely impressive opening to the show.
Yep.
And that's about as interesting as it was for me. On this series, as I said, there's not a whole lot of information, but we do know some of the guest stars based on the YouTube footage, plus also IMDb. You did have people like, I hate saying this first name, Anita Bryant. But then you also had Andy Kaufman appearing on one episode. In the footage of at least one episode, you see Billy Barty.
What?
Get it out of your system, Greg. What did Billy Barty do on the Super Train?
Oh, he was one of the 2 dwarves that helped the magician kidnap that presidential candidate on the Super Train.
Oh, my. I'm sure that felt good to get out of your system.
Oh, the Hail to the Chief episode for Floretta's sweat.
One person who made recurring appearances on this series was a gentleman named Bill Saluga. And Bill Saluga may not be a well-known name, but he was part of Ace Trucking Company, which was a comedy troupe back in the 60s and 70s. And some of the members of Ace Trucking Company are people you've heard of. Patty Deutsch. Patty Deutsch, who was on Match Game, and we'll eventually talk about her when we talk about Capital Critters. And then, rest in peace, just passed away within the last few months, Fred Willard.
Yep.
But then the third person, again, we're going back a number of episodes. I think we're going back, 80-plus episodes. Going back to Hello, Larry, George Mamoli, the producer in the first season.
Oh, what?
So out of the 5 people in the Ace Trucking Company, you had, 3 legitimate names, at least in this world, in our little area. And then you had Bill Saluga, who, he had a career, let's say that. So, yeah, so this Ace Trucking Company, they did well. I mean, Fred Willard, George Mamoli, Patty Deutsch, and Bill Saluga.
It's not bad.
Nope.
But also, in addition to those folks, you had Slappy White on some episodes.
Oh, Slappy White.
Slappy.
Well, yeah, and Slappy made some appearances on Sanford and Son, so again, he's a known entity, if you will. But also, and this one is not listed in IMDb, but doing a little research, I found out this person was on this show and actually played a role similar to like the Aunt Esther role on Sanford and Son. Jo Marie Payton.
Wait a minute. Harriet Winslow was on the Redd Foxx Comedy Hour.
Yes, that Harriet Winslow.
Yeah.
Also, we should add 2 of the writers of the show, and I think they're even more than writers. I think they actually had a hand in producing the show. At least one of them did. One was more of a writer. The other was a writer/producer of the show. One Bob Einstein.
Oh,
and if you don't know who that is, you know who that guy is?
I know who that guy is.
I know who that guy is.
Is the one, the only, Super Dave Osborne.
Yeah, that's Super Dave Osborne, and also Albert Brooks's brother.
Yep. We mentioned him back in the XFL 2001 episode.
Yeah. And another name we mentioned, and this goes back, probably, I think it goes back to around maybe episode 20 or so, episode 18. Pat Proft, who also wrote the Star Wars Holiday Special.
Yes!
Yep. Among other things, like Police Squad, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, he wrote the Naked Gun movies, too. So.
And what happened to this show, again, from what I've read, ABC considered this a success. And you say, how could this be a success? It lasted maybe 3-4 months. It was gone by like the first or second week of January of 1978. How was this a success?
Yeah, you're going to have to explain this one, Mike.
Okay. Well, they got Redd Foxx away from NBC. In turn, there's no more Sanford and Son on NBC. So they hurt their competition. They got rid of their competitions.
Oh.
One of their competitions.
When in doubt, buy him out. Got it.
Yeah, they got rid of competition by giving him an offer he couldn't refuse, and he went to ABC. And yeah, even though the show didn't last, it was a success because they got rid of Sanford and Son. Well, they didn't totally get rid of Sanford and Son. We're going to talk about that in the second half of this episode. Also, one other thing of note, I don't know if Norman Lear held grudges, but it's interesting that after Sanford and Son was taken off the air, after ABC essentially bought Redd Foxx, it's interesting that there's only been 2 shows from Norman Lear that ever appeared on ABC. Just 2. One was a sitcom, and this may be a future entry. I'm pretty sure it is. AKA Pablo with Paul Rodriguez.
Yeah.
Oh, I think I know the second.
Okay.
Is it Hotel Baltimore?
No.
What?
No, Hotel Baltimore was before.
Okay.
That was 75. No, actually, what I was referring to was the live in front of a studio audience.
Oh, yeah.
The All in the Family and Good Times and the Jeffersons that was done within the last, year and a half or so. Yeah, so those are really the only 2 Norman Lear shows which have appeared on ABC in essentially 45 years almost.
Yeah, well, one of them was basically an anthology of his greatest hits, so...
Yeah, but
it's like having
still,
more than one.
Yeah, but also still, that's a good 35 years after AKA Pablo, so I wonder if there was still a little bit of resentment at that point. Or maybe it's just, just coincidental. Oh, the one show that ABC bought from Norman Lear happened to be AKA Pablo, which, again, we'll probably eventually cover it because it only ran for 6 episodes and barely over a month.
Well, I think kind of the live in front of the studio audience mostly also has to do with the fact that Jimmy Kimmel's involved and he's an ABC guy.
Right, but it's still under the Norman Lear umbrella, and at least on the first installment, they did have Norman Lear there. Well, that's it for part 1. Part 2, we're going to get into the other 2 spinoffs related to Sanford and Son. We're going to talk about what happened to Sanford and Son after Redd Foxx left. But then we're going to talk about a semi-triumphant return, kind of, sort of, ish? Question mark?
Wow!
Grady Wilson, by all accounts, was a kind and gentle man. A man who almost 20 years ago to this day suddenly disappeared without a trace, without so much as a goodbye. The story of Grady Wilson's mysterious disappearance begins over 20 years ago at the Sanford and Son junkyard. Grady would spend a great deal of time at Sanford's, in spite of the almost constant fighting between Fred Sanford and his son Lamont and a woman known as Aunt Esther. These arguments would often culminate in a call to the police.
I got a big old ugly woman here. Send a dog catcher to get her off my property.
What money?
Boss told him get a few eggs.
Off my property! I want this woman off my property!
I've been out to that place 3 or 4 times. There was always a lot of yelling and screaming. I always felt that one day things would get out of hand.
That date turned out to be March 23rd, 1976. Fred Sanford was moving car parts in the junkyard when suddenly Aunt Esther appeared, demanding a donation for her church fundraiser.
Why don't you go drink a big glass of shut-up juice?
I Fred Sanford, I never.
And I bet you never will.
I remember that day. Oh, that Fred Sanford could rile me up. Suicide free. We must have been loud because Grady came out of the house to see what was going on.
Grady was about to break up the fight when Fred said, "Esther, you so ugly, I'd rather kiss Joe Frazier." Suddenly, Aunt Esther swung her handbag at Sanford, but he ducked, and she struck Grady.
I was so mad I just kept yelling at Fred. We didn't even notice what happened to poor Grady.
Grady apparently got up and staggered away from the junkyard. He has not been seen or heard from since. What has happened to Grady Wilson? Grady is 5 feet 10 inches tall and is 65 years old. He walks with a stooped gait and may have a long white beard. If you have any information as to Grady Wilson's whereabouts, or if you just want to talk about Grady, please contact the Conan O'Brien Grady hotline at 1-800-881-3192.
Okay, so that is the first part of Into the Sanford verse, and well, we've covered some good ground there in part one. I gotta say though, Grady, not that bad. Not as bad as I suspected. Oh, but the one episode of the Redd Foxx Comedy Hour I saw, I mean, the only good part about the bits I saw was the unknown comic was in it, and you can't go wrong with the unknown comic, but yeah, but ABC was pretty happy that they killed Sanford and Son. Alright, so on Place to Be Nation Pop right now, we have a wide variety of shows that have come onto the feed in the last week. In episode number 1 of a new series called Making Mount Rushmore, Andy Atherton was joined by Scott Criscuolo, Tim Cable, Matt Souza, and Jacob Williams to discuss which HBO dramas deserve a place as one of the 4 greatest of all time. And various shows are discussed on this podcast, such as The Sopranos, Game of Thrones, The Wire, Oz, Boardwalk Empire, the works. So, a very fun episode of a new series on Place to Be Nation Pop. Hope you can check that out. And in episode 2 of the franchise looking at the Star Trek movie series, we had Scott and Tech talking about Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, as the boys talked their 5 categories, including Ricardo Montalban, the music, the story, how it compared to the other movies that came out in 1982, and so much more. Another great episode, as always, in that series, and I'm looking forward to Search for Spock. And in episode of Blockbuster Rewind, in episode number 4, Andy was joined by Eric Eels and Scott Shiflett, and joined by Sean Kidd to discuss the superhero film Batman and its sequels, as they went through each of the films to talk about the villains and their nefarious plots of each one, discuss the different actors that played Bruce Wayne and Batman, the memorable lines of dialogue, all the Bat gadgets, the inspired casting for both leads and supporting characters, and make comparisons between Tim Burton and Joel Schumacher. And as a bonus, they chat about the 1966 film Batman the movie, favorite of ours. And you got it. You never know when you need the Bat Shark repellent. There's always going to be a time when you need it. You never know when that's going to happen. Also, be sure to check out the PTBN Wrestling Network, which includes a dive into topics running the gamut from the day's WWE through yesteryear. The feed includes the Place to Be podcast, Main Event, Jenny and the Gems, Body Pressure Luck, PTB NXT, the NWA Saturday Special, NWA Crock and Roll, Highway to the Impact Zone, and so much more. Subscribe today. While you're at it, subscribe to Jennifer Smith's Jenny Position feed as well. It is the home of Geek and Sassy, Talking Pop, Freak Out Driving, The Journey Through Infinity, Telling Stories, The Brother Sister Rewatch Podcast, Bianca's First Time, and more. And also check out the North-South Connection, which is the home of Wrestling Warzone, No Holds Barred, The Extreme 3A Dance, The Ruthlessly Aggressive Podcast, Carolina Dreaming, Jeff Learns Wrestling, and more. And on the social media pages, the greatest song from a movie tournament is still going on right now, so you can keep tabs onto the tournament Facebook page for details and daily matchups. And we got the 2020 Stretch Project going to December 31st, Sports determines the greatest WCW match ever. You have until the end of the year to do research, promote matches, and build your list. Conversation the Rules can be found at facebook.com/GWCW matches or on the Pro Wrestling Only message board. And be sure not to forget to check out PlaceToBeNation.com each and every day. We have new voices and fresh takes, bringing you articles on topics in the worlds of wrestling, sports, and pop culture, including Trends, SmackDown, and Fox Report. This week in the WWE by John Crow, Steve Riddles, Wonderful World of Disney Reviews, Paul's Perspective, Matt's live-action Disney movie reviews, and Ben's Unpopular Opinion. And if you're doing online shopping at Amazon, be sure to click on the Amazon banner on the right side of the PTBN homepage, or use www.placetobenation.com/Amazon. It'll take you right to Amazon and helps out PTBN at no cost to you. Alright, nothing to it, let's get to it. Here we go with part 2 of Into the Sanford Verse, where we talk about Sanford Arms and the 1980 to 81 continuation of Sanford and Son, Sanford. Alright, let's do it!
Episode 94, Submission 033, Into the Sanford Verse, Part 2. Well, guys, we talked about the first spinoff of Sanford and Son, Grady, and we talked about what eventually happened to Redd Foxx upon the conclusion of Sanford and Son, that being the Redd Foxx Comedy Hour. But there are two other series that arose from the Sanford and Son family.
Yeah.
Now, the first one, this was sort of the immediate response to, OMG, Redd Foxx is now at ABC. We need to keep the franchise afloat in some capacity. And how did they keep the franchise afloat in some capacity? Question mark? With the sitcom Sanford Arms. Sanford Arms aired on NBC from September 16th of 1977 to October 14th of 1977 for a total of 8 episodes, 4 of which went unaired. So, Chico, tell us how you feel about that theme.
That theme is a boppity 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 bop!
And you know why it's a boppity 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 bop?
Why is that a boppity 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 bop?
It was done by the one and only Henry Mancini.
Oh, yeah.
We're talking about the same Henry Mancini that wrote such themes as Peter Gunn.
NBC mystery movie.
Yeah, but also at the same time, he did do the theme to Tic-Tac-Toe in 1990.
Ooh. Oh, the Electric Light Parade theme. Ew.
By the way, just this past week, we celebrated the 30th anniversary of Tic-Tac-Toe from 1990. You're welcome, America. But also, I mean, another one that we should add on the good list, I'm sorry, not even the good list, the classic list, Newhart.
Oh!
And Ripley's Believe It or Not in the 80s, the version with Jack Palance.
Jack Palance?
Believe it?
Yeah, the version of the show that good friend of this podcast, Brian Henniger, absolutely loves.
Believe it or not.
And one more good one, the Pink Panther.
Oh, that just transcends.
Yeah. And then one more for the bad list, and then we're moving on. Recent installment, we just covered this like 3 weeks ago, Co-Ed Fever.
Wait, that was him?
It was him.
What?
Oh,
God. The one episode of Co-Ed Fever, he did the theme song. Dear Mom and Dad was done by Henry Mancini. So there you go. You have the really good, the really memorable. Then you have Tic Tac Toe 1990, and you have Co-Ed Fever.
Well, not everything can be the NBC mystery movie, I'm afraid.
No, and nothing can be like Newhart. I mean, or Peter Gunn. Those are two absolutely iconic theme songs.
Yep.
But anywho, so now Fred Sanford, Redd Foxx, has gone over to ABC. He's cashing his check, doing his comedy hour, not knowing that he's going to be canceled in just a matter of months. What's a franchise to do?
Well, they don't have Fred Sanford, and they don't have Lamont, because DeMond Wilson left in solidarity. But they do have the set, and they do have a bunch of accessory characters that they can bump up to regulars. So that's exactly what they did. And not only that, we put an entirely new family into the whole situation. That would be the Wheeler family. A widower, army buddy of Fred Sanford by the name of Phil Wheeler, played by Teddy Wilson, and his two teenage children, Angie and Nat, played by Tina Andrews and John Earl, respectively. But they also have Julio's old house. That for one reason or another, they want to turn into a bed and breakfast hotel in the middle of Watts. Who opens a bed and breakfast in the middle of Watts? Anyway.
A very enterprising entrepreneur, maybe?
Perhaps. And they call it the Sanford Arms.
Looking back at the primary cast of Sanford Arms, there's a couple of names that definitely we need to talk about because they had previous roles of some significance. We talked about Teddy Wilson, Theodore Wilson. If you look at him, he's got one of those faces where you say, I've seen that guy before. I don't know exactly where I saw him. Well, one place that you may have seen him, he was a regular on, hey, guess what? We're going to bring up this feature installment again because he was on this show, a regular. That's My Mama.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
He played Earl Chambers on That's My Mama. But also, in addition to that, he played the role of Sweet Daddy Williams on Good Times, primarily after the departure of John Amos, after his character died. But again, he's one of those faces when you see him, it's like, I've seen that guy. I may not know where I'm able to place him, but he's that guy from that show.
Yep. He was also on Enos, Give Me a Break, The Golden Girls, and What's Happening Now, Alien Nation, Dallas, Family Matters, Tales from the Crypt, Gabriel's Fire, Mama's Family, and Quantum Leap.
Again, classic case of that guy from that show.
Mm-hmm.
And then Tina Andrews, she was sort of like that person from that show. She was on 5 episodes of Falcon Crest back in 1983. But the other place you may recognize her, is she played the character Esther for at least 5 episodes on Room 222.
Okay.
Yeah, and that shows up in reruns every now and then on cable. So there's that. And then John Earl. Where do we know John Earl from? Nothing. This is his only credit on IMDb. I'm not even joking.
He doesn't even have a page on Wikipedia.
Yeah. I mean, this is literally the only credit John Earl has. So that's where you know him from. You know him from Diddly Squat. But then you have supporting cast members who carried over from Sanford and Son. We talked about Don Bexley in the previous episode playing Bubba. He appeared as Bubba on Grady. He also appears on Sanford Arms. Same with LaWanda Page. LaWanda Page is Aunt Esther. She appeared on Grady as well. She appears on this. And then also, we mentioned Grady. Grady Wilson himself, Whitman Mayo, appears on this as well.
Yeah.
So you've got a lot of the Sanford and Son family making appearances, even just guest appearances, at least in the case of Whitman Mayo. He appeared on 2 episodes. So, yeah, you've got some of the old family coming back to the kind of sort of new show. Well, new formats and new family involving the Wheelers. The big thing is you don't have the one, the only Redd Foxx.
Yeah.
And as we said, 4 episodes and gone. It didn't even last a calendar month.
Yeah.
I think that shows you the audience's response to losing Redd Foxx. You lost everybody. Plus, also, you don't have DeMond Wilson, which we'll admit is a big part of the Sanford and Son family as well. Well, looking at the episodes themselves, again, 8 episodes, 4 went unaired, and it's very possible that they did eventually air because Sanford Arms did rerun on BET in the early 1990s. But also, a Canadian rerun channel called CHCH picked up this series last year, 2019, and actually reran 6 of the 8 episodes. So at the very least, 2 of the unaired episodes saw the light of day, maybe for the first time in like 42 years. But yeah, the 4 episodes, Bye Fred, Hi Phil. This is sort of like the Grady moving out episode, except now, okay, we're getting rid of Fred, and here comes Phil Wheeler. Fred and Lamont are gone, and Phil Wheeler takes control of the Sanford Arms Hotel. Grady and his new wife, Dolly, from Sanford and Son, the episode Grady and His Lady, check in to spend their honeymoon at the Sanford Arms, while Phil and Bubba try to find a way to come up with the rent money for the month. When Grady and Dolly check in, it is explained that Fred and Lamont moved to Arizona due to Fred's health. No, the truth is they moved to Arizona because Fred made a hell of a lot of money at ABC.
Yeah, Arizona. ABC Zona, am I right?
Dum-dum.
I'll be here all week. Anyway. Episode 2. Phil's Assertion School. Phil plans to teach people to be more assertive backfires when a student decides to sue him. The matter is worked out when Phil, with the help of one of his daughter friends, gets the student to realize he can be assertive.
Phil's sued by one of his students. That's tough. It's also a little scary, and I say that as the resident educator here.
That is rough.
It is rough. And then episode 3, the grandparents. Nathaniel's grandparents come for a visit. As usual, they pester Phil to allow Nat to come and live with them in their upscale home in San Diego, reasoning that Watts is no place to raise a 12-year-old boy. Nat decides to go and live with his grandparents, but only to prove to them they are too old to handle a child his age.
Well, I cannot see where any of this is wrong.
I can't disagree with it either. Again, from experience with my students, absolutely true. And maybe even more so in 1977, there's definitely like a culture difference between, let's say, grandparents who were raised in the 20s or 30s and this 12-year-old in 1977. There's a huge cultural difference. You're absolutely right about that. And then we get to episode 4. This is the last aired episode, or at least the last aired episode in 1977. And it is called Phil's Past. An incident from Phil's past gets in the way of his attempts to get a liquor license.
Well, that's not good.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there may be some ghosts in the closet. It's very possible. And yeah, they're very picky about who they give liquor licenses to. Oh, and also, I don't think we mentioned it. The Sanford residence is now a boarding house.
Yeah, that would be the Sanford Arms.
Yeah, so it wasn't like Fred and Lamont bought an apartment complex. It's just their old pad is now, well, an old pad that houses many people.
Yeah. This actually happens on an episode of Sanford and Son's penultimate season, so it's not like it exists in a bubble.
Okay, so it's actually part of the Sanford and Son canon, kind of,
Yes.
sort of, per se.
Kind of, sorta.
Kind of, sort of, per se, yeah. So now these last 4 episodes, they didn't originally air. So not a whole lot's being given about them. We know that episode 5 is called The TV Show, and the Sanford Arms is chosen as a site for a TV show. Don't know what type of TV show, that we just know it's a TV show. And we also should add, on this episode, playing the director of the TV show, how about this for a name? Adam Wade.
Oh, he is historically the first African American game show host.
And if this isn't on our list, it better be. He hosted Musical Chairs. Let's play a game of musical chairs. And give us a round of applause, or something like that. I don't remember. But it's on YouTube, and we're going to cover Musical Chairs because I absolutely love Musical Chairs. Plus also Musical Chairs, on current episodes of Match Game 75 airing on Buzzer. What's following Match Game 75? Musical Chairs.
Oh,
there you go.
Yeah.
Stay tuned for Musical Chairs.
Stay tuned for Musical Chairs. Next over most of these CBS stations.
Not with Bill Cullen from Hot Potato.
From Hot Potato.
From Hot Potato, Bill Cullen.
We're going to do just an episode of our bad impersonations of Johnny Olson.
Yeah.
It's a new car.
It's time for the Match Game Hollywood Squares Hour with Jay Leno. Boo. Tom Brady.
Oh, well.
Yay.
Nidra Vols. Nidra Vols.
Yeah.
Nidra Vols.
How many Nidra Volses are there?
I'm waiting for Greg's reaction. Nidra Vols. I was expecting a verbal reaction, but that's acceptable.
I can't believe you didn't see that already.
Because I didn't have the Zoom window open.
Oh, no.
It's a good thing. It's a good thing on the video feed.
Greg, can you believe this guy, Greg?
It's a good thing on the video feed. You're not going to see what I did.
Okay, now I need to be very blunt with you. Who got the worst reaction, Nidra Vols or Jay Leno?
It's a push.
Okay, both of them are finger-worthy. I get that. But, I mean, Jay Leno is double guns finger-worthy.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
We get to episode 6. Again, very little information is about this. It's called Young Love. Oh, surprise, Young Love. One of Phil's children falls in love. What a shocker. What a shocker. This is my shocked face. It's also my face.
I am shocked. This is my shocked face.
Yeah. Episode 7 is called The Wedding Reception. Angie and Nat plan a wedding for Phil and Jeannie.
The kids plan a wedding reception. Anything can happen.
What could go wrong? What couldn't go wrong? Tee-hee. and we should add that the character of Jeannie is played by B.B. Drake.
That name sounds vaguely familiar.
Yeah, she did some voices on The Boondocks. She also played Velma Gaines on A Different World.
That's where it is. That's where it is.
There you go. It always goes back to A Different World and Match Game Hollywood Squares and Night Court and Nerd, so on and so forth. And then the last episode, the last produced episode, again, possibly still even unaired up to this point, the Ernie Williams Memorial Golf Course. And simply put, Phil plays golf at a course named after Ernie Williams.
Yay.
And who the heck is Ernie Williams?
He's a guy with a golf course named after him, obviously. Now,
I have no response to that.
Okay, so now that you've covered all that there is to cover about the Sanford Arms, we're going to cover the final chapter of the Sanford verse. And for this chapter, I need you to do one thing, Mike. And I need everybody listening to this to do one thing.
Okay.
Forget the Sanford Arms ever existed.
Well, forget that existed. I'd even say forget Grady existed. The main reason I say that, well, you'll find out shortly when we do the recap of its longevity. It had a hell of a lot longer life than the two shows before it, the two spinoffs.
Combined.
And I think even if you double it, it would be two more shows than how many Sanford ran for in terms of aired episodes. So, yeah, the details about this. Sanford, it aired on NBC from March 15th of 1980 to July 10th of 1981 for a total of 26 episodes. Song better be awfully familiar.
Oh, it's boptastic. It's boperific.
Well, not just that. It's the Streetwalker.
Oh, yeah. Quincy Jones in the house.
It's the original Sanford and Son theme. It's back for this series.
Yep. And so is Redd Foxx.
Yeah, but you know who's not back for the series?
Well, Damon Wilson's not back.
Yeah, Damon Wilson's not back. Damon obviously played Lamont Sanford. He's not back.
Nope.
But we have somebody else who's taken Damon Wilson's place, not as his son, not as a relative at all. It's Fred's new business partner in the junkyard. And his name is Cal Petty.
Not Kyle Petty, Cal Petty.
Yes.
He's a heavy-set fellow, played by Dennis Berkeley, who is originally from Grand Prairie, Texas, who worked with Lamont on, get this is the ultimate, let's put him on a bus sort of thing, an Alaskan pipeline.
So he went from Arizona to the Alaskan pipeline.
Yeah. Again, let's pretend the Sanford Arms did not exist.
Right. That's a heck of a transition there. In 3 years, you went from Arizona to the Alaska pipeline and then ended up back in Watts.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Hey, guys, do you know what show Dennis Berkeley was on?
What show was Dennis Berkeley on?
In 1984. Mike, you want to guess?
I know because I'm looking at it, but I'll let you say it.
Night Court.
Nice.
Yes. Well, the thing is, if you look at Dennis Berkeley, he's, again, one of those people, when you look at the face, you're like, I've seen him. I know him from somewhere. I maybe just can't, pinpoint where I know him from. He's done, everything. I mean, he's not with us anymore, unfortunately. He passed away back in 2013.
He was the voice of Principal Moss on King of the Hill.
Well, that's one of them, yeah. He was the voice of Principal Moss. He also had a recurring role on Mary Hartman, going back to the mid-'70s. Also, similarly, he played the same role on Forever Fernwood, which was like the spin-off of Mary Hartman after Mary Hartman left.
Well, it was no Fernwood tonight.
Then again, what is?
Well, but that was more or less an extension of Mary Hartman more than it was Fernwood or America Tonight. So it was a continuation of Mary Hartman from what I've seen. But one place that I remember seeing him, and this shows up on cable every now and then, he was on the last 2 episodes of Maude. He played Maude's, how do I phrase it? I don't want to call him an intern, but he was like a congressional aide for Maude, because if you remember when Maude ended, she won an election to become a congressperson. She went to D.C. He was her aide, basically, if you will, showing her the ropes. Not a reference to 2 weeks ago. Yeah, so again, he's that guy from that show that you've seen. Maybe you don't recognize his name or what shows he's been on, but he's been on plenty of shows. He was on 4 episodes of Hill Street Blues in 1983. He was on Home Improvement. We mentioned that he was on Night Court. So he was also on a couple of episodes of future installment, the new WKRP in Cincinnati. So he definitely made the rounds between like the 70s and even up until, as Greg said, King of the Hill, which would have been up until 2010. So he had a lengthy career. Also, in this new series, we add some new characters. One is a customer who's actually an upper-class widow whose name is Evelyn, played by Marguerite Ray, and she appears in 24 of the 26 episodes. And Margaret Ray, she appeared on a number of episodes of Young and the Restless back in the late 80s up until 1990. And that really is the only other thing she's done, at least consistently, besides Sanford.
Mm-hmm.
Fred Sanford actually starts dating Evelyn, at least in the first season of the show.
Yep.
And one person who doesn't really agree to this dating is Evelyn's brother, Winston, played by Percy Rodriguez.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, that Percy Rodriguez. Now, again, actually looking at him, looking at his picture, he's another one of those people, I don't know where I know him from, but I've seen him on shows. And again, looking at his CV, if you will, where he might be best known from was he portrayed Judge Harper on Benson from 1982 to 1985. I mean, he's also done a number of movies, and he's been on other TV shows. But again, when I saw his face, it's like, okay, I know him from somewhere, but I can't really pinpoint where that somewhere be. Maybe it was Benson back in the early 80s. Who knows?
Yeah, I'll tell you right now, if you are a big theme park fan, and you know me, I'm a low-key Disney fan, he was the narrator in Captain EO.
Really? Okay.
Yep.
That's pretty cool.
And you can learn about that. There's an episode of the Funkland devoted to Captain EO. So
very nice. I didn't know that. You learn something every day here. Another person who didn't really like Fred and Evelyn dating is a maid named Clara, played by Kathy Cooper. Yes, that Kathy Cooper. There's 4 entries for her on IMDb. One is Sanford. A second, she appeared on 2 episodes of Sanford and Son. And then there's 2 others that I haven't even heard of. So Sanford was her career, or the Sanford and Son franchise was essentially her career, if you believe IMDb.
Okay.
One person who actually was more accepting of Fred happened to be Evelyn's daughter, Sissy, played by Suzanne Stone. And who's Suzanne Stone? She's been in a number of things. Hasn't done much in the last 20 years. Doesn't look like she's done anything in the last 20 years. She was on the daytime soap opera Texas for 10 episodes in 1980. So this would have been right around the time that Sanford started.
Mm-hmm.
And also she was on 3 episodes of future installment 9 to 5.
Oh, yeah.
What a way to make a living.
Mm-hmm. Oh, fun fact, she played Dr. Joan Leland on Batman the Animated Series.
Later on in season 1, we are also introduced to a new character in the Sanford and Son canon, if you will. We're introduced to Aunt Esther's college-age son named Cliff, played by Clinton Derricks Carroll.
If he looks familiar, he has a twin brother, Cleavant Derricks, who you would know as Rembrandt Brown from Sliders.
Oh! I perked up when I heard Rembrandt Brown in Sliders.
Yeah, and you know what the funny thing is? Clinton Derricks Carroll actually portrayed Rembrandt Brown 2 on Sliders.
Oh my god!
There was an evil twin.
What?
Are you kidding me?
Well, I assume when it says Rembrandt Brown 2, it's got to be an evil twin.
Okay.
Maybe I'm right. Maybe I'm wrong.
Well, maybe it's Sliders, so.
Yep, Rembrandt Brown number 2 and Rembrandt the Duke of Hemmingshire.
And also, we should add, he was in the TV movie Introducing Dorothy Dandridge. If you remember that, I think it was HBO back in the late 90s.
Yeah,
big movie.
With Halle Berry, yeah.
Yeah, very big movie. Absolutely.
That made Halle Berry's career. I don't care what anybody thinks.
Swordfish or GTFO.
Anyway, and there is a returning character from the Sanford verse, Rollo Lawson, played by Nathaniel Taylor.
Oh, not Rollo, the guy that stole the 2 rolls of quarters on Grady.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, he's back.
And also back are officers Smitty and Hoppy.
Again, as we mentioned previously, played by Hal Williams, who later go on to 227, and Howard Platt, who, as we mentioned, played the pilot on previous installment, Flying High. But an interesting person who shows up, it says 2 episodes here, but actually I think it was actually 3. Maybe he was uncredited in 1 episode. A little entertainer who you know by the name of Sammy Davis Jr.
Ooh.
Yeah, that obviously, that Sammy Davis Jr. But he appeared as himself in 2 episodes. It says on Truth by Consensus Wikipedia, but IMDb it said 3 episodes. So maybe 1 was uncredited. That's why I said that, including the first season finale, which Fred persuades Sammy Davis Jr. to perform for Evelyn's charity. But then the show returned for the 2nd season. It came back as a retooled mid-season replacement. Usually those words aren't very good.
You know what makes it even worse?
What?
They put it on the Friday night death slot. That is almost a killer.
That's where shows like Hello, Larry go to die.
Mm-hmm. I'll tell you, not even Aunt Esther herself could save it. And I'll tell you right now, you want to talk about extreme makeovers? This is about as extreme as it gets. It focused more on Fred and Cal and less on Fred and Eve. They went from Fred and Eve engaged to Fred and Eve just dating. And Rollo, yeah, that's harsh. Rollo, Winston, Sissy, and Clara were dropped with no explanation. They were put on a bus.
Yeah, talk about retooling.
Yeah, they basically tried to clone Sanford and Son.
They did. I was just going to say that they're trying to focus on the business aspect, the way that Lamont and Fred were on the original show, but also at the same point, you did have Fred sometimes fall in love on the original show as well. I mean, it wasn't a major, a major plot point in the show at any point, but he did have relationships or dates with females, not going anywhere necessarily. But yeah, so they went back to what worked previously, and it didn't work. And also, we should mention another character that popped up in season 2, at least for 2 episodes, the first 2 episodes, was Grady. Because, hey, if we're trying to bring back the original series just in a different form without DeMond Wilson, let's bring back Grady. Let's see if he can bring some of his goofy magic back.
That did not happen.
Some of the storylines, which we'll get to in a little bit, they were a little questionable. I mean, we saw questionable a couple of years later with Love, Sidney, which we talked about previously, in terms of a homosexual man raising a daughter and some of the very controversial topics that tackled. This covered some similar topics, which we'll tread lightly with in a little bit.
Yeah.
The new show just, guess what? It didn't do that well in the ratings, partially because, as we said, Friday Night Death Slot, that'll kill your show. And the show was pulled before February sweeps at the end of January. The remaining episodes were burned off over in the summer, but there was no formal finale.
Nope.
So let's quickly go over the episodes, and we'll see what type of controversy came up in season 2. We have a 2-part first episode, well, episodes 1 and 2 in this case, called The Meeting. Fred continues coordinating his junk empire with his new partner, Cal Petty, Lamont's friend and co-worker from the Alaskan Pipeline. And into Fred's Garden of Eden steps in Eve Lewis. Into his Garden of Eden? Whatever.
Because her name is Eve.
Because her name's Eve. I totally get that, but it's like, really? Is that how we're going to describe it?
Yeah, you know what? You should have heard the jokes he made about having a big red apple.
Oh, jeez. Fred proposes to Eve, but feels very out of place in her sophisticated social circle, especially when wearing a borrowed magician's tuxedo. And, yeah, I could see him being out of place there because Fred Sanford by no means is a tuxedo-wearing person.
No, he's not even a person who goes to Beverly Hills on a dare, because that's where Eve Lewis lives, in Beverly Hills.
Ooh, that's tough.
Yeah.
But when he does wear a tux, he does look darn classy, I'll tell you that.
Quite classy.
Oh, he may not be a tux person, but he pulls it off well.
Mm-hmm.
And then episode 3, it's actually a 3-part episode, The Meeting Part 3. After faking a heart attack to get out of his engagement, Fred realizes that he still has feelings for Eve. So there's the waffling situation with the relationship early on. I mean, we're technically still in the first episode, albeit part 3 of the first episode.
Mm-hmm.
But he's already waffling on, do I want to make this commitment? Well, apparently the answer to that is nope.
Among these 3 episodes, you see several wink, wink, nod, nod, nudge, nudge to many of the in-jokes in the original Sanford and Son. And even as Fred grows into this guy who's ready to commit and then all of a sudden not ready to commit, what do I always say? Nostalgia is not a suitable substitute for character development.
Yeah, Chico said that a couple of times. Absolutely. Episode 4 was called The Still of the Night. Fred schemes to make easy money from Cal's smooth bourbon after discovering Cal has built a still and is making lip-smacking good moonshine using his family's secret recipe.
Why do his family always have a secret recipe?
And let's just do some illegal moonshine. Yeah.
Illegal moonshine with the secret.
That sounds like a winner.
Yeah. Illegal moonshine with the secret recipe. They make roller coasters off of that.
A secret Southern recipe, so you know it's got to be good. And then we get to episode 4, which is called Dinner at George's. Big Spender Fred. I never thought I'd hear those 3 words about Fred Sanford. Big Spender Fred insists on taking Eve to her favorite Beverly Hills bistro, but gets his ego bruised when Eve plots to pay the check behind his back.
Because Eve is rich and Fred is not.
Yeah, and I could see how the ego could be bruised. Let me pay for the dates, and I mean, it's happened to me. Not with you, Laura. You're fine. But one person I want to mention who appeared in this episode, actually appearing as himself, Tom Dreesen.
Oh!
Ooh.
You know who he is.
Yes, he was one of Letterman's boys.
Well, he wasn't just one of Letterman's boys. When we cover the 5 different pilots regarding the Word Grabbers format, which was made into actually like 3 different shows. It's a format that didn't sell that got 5 pilots.
$5
pilots.
5 pilots.
I'm not lying. 5 pilots from this one concept that Ron Greenberg did, and he was on the first pilot of Word Grabbers in 1976, along with good friend of his and newly transplanted Indianapolis resident David Letterman.
Oh.
And footage of this actually appeared on Letterman some time ago when Tom Dreesen was a guest.
Okay.
So we'll revisit Tom Dreesen. Plus, also Tom Dreesen's been on many, many shows. If you don't know who he is, you live a very sheltered life.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was like a regular fixture on Letterman.
Uh-huh.
Oh, was he ever? Oh, yes. We get to the next episode, which is called Younger Than Springtime Am I. Feeling old, Fred falls for a con man's quack cure and buys a fountain of youth pill called Methusetal.
Oh, I got a name for you on this episode.
Wait, Methusetal?
Well, this was the days before Viagra and Cialis. So you had to make do with what you had.
Anyway, I have a name for you on this episode.
Hit us with a name.
Rod McCary. From past installment, The Cool Kids.
Oh, him! Yes! Yes! Yeah, Rod McCary. He played the really snobby rich guy who everybody hated. Yes!
Yeah, and he was in War and Remembrance, wasn't he?
I think so. I know he was in The Flintstones as Mr. Slate.
Well, one thing I guarantee he was not in was Whoopi in Remembrance.
Yeah. Damn sure.
He was in War and Remembrance, by the way, yes.
Okay.
Oh, you said he was in The Flintstones, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you know who's the villain in the Flintstones movie?
Kyle MacLachlan, who was on an episode of Twin Peaks. He was on all the episodes of Twin Peaks. He was Mr. Twin Peaks.
Yeah. I thought you were going to say Mr. C. I'm like, yeah, he certainly was Mr. C.
Yeah, he was on one episode of Twin Peaks.
Yeah, okay, and then he was on another, and another, and another. Methusetal.
You gotta give him credit there. That is funny and clever.
It is. It is funny and it is clever.
It is very funny and very clever. And that takes us to episodes 7 and 8, which is another two-part episode called Retrospective.
Ooh.
We're already talking about retrospectives, 7 episodes.
Are we already doing a clip show?
Well, let's find out. While hauling junk from Eve's home, Fred and Cal are arrested on suspicion of burglary. While sitting in jail, they reminisce about their first meeting and of Fred and Eve's engagement party. So
yes, they are doing it.
Well, I was going to say, no, they're not doing a clip show because, it sounds like they're reminiscing about the recent past, which may not necessarily be from previous episodes, if you know what I mean.
Oh, only the IMDb listing gives archive footage, so.
Okay, so maybe they were already doing a clip show of sorts after 7 episodes. And then actually the second part of that episode, which aired the same night, just says that Fred and Cal continue looking back and laughing at their past adventures while locked up in a Beverly Hills jail. So yeah, it's a clip show, 7 and 8 episodes into the series. And yes, they do actually mention archive footage of, among other people, Tom Dreesen and Sammy Davis Jr. And actually, one other name we should add, because he was a big name, and he actually died not very long after these episodes aired, believe it or not. You had Matthew Beard, and if that name doesn't ring a bell, if you look at his picture, he was Stymie from the Little Rascals.
Yes!
What?
Yeah. So, yeah, Stymie was actually on a couple of episodes, including this retrospective episode. And this episode aired April 15th of 1980, and he actually died January 8th of 1981. So
yeah,
he would not be with us more than about 7, 8 months later.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Episode 9 is Perfect Husband. Okay, well, maybe the marriage is back on since we're talking Perfect Husband now. Fred and Eve's engagement hits a bump in the road when Eve romanticizes her late husband as an angel and a saint, and flesh and blood Fred fears he can't compete.
Yeah.
That's tough. I mean, I can understand why he might feel inadequate, for lack of a better word, but yeah, that's tough.
Indeed it is.
But that takes us to episode 10, called The Ring. After being terrorized in a jewelry store robbery, Fred discovers a $12,000 diamond ring fell into his cap. While deciding whether to return or to keep the ring, officers Hoppy and Smitty appear at the door. Oh, there's Hoppy and Smitty. But now, remember, Hoppy and Smitty, they didn't necessarily take their job seriously on the original Sanford and Son. Especially Hoppy.
Yep. Hoppy was the goofy one, and Smitty was the sensible one.
That's the best way of saying it, absolutely. And we should mention that playing the female robber in this episode is Lindsay Bloom. Again, another name that you may recognize from the late 70s and early 80s. She was on the Dukes of Hazzard for a number of episodes as Myrtle Tillingham. She was Bonnie Robertson on Dallas. She was also Velda on the new Mike Hammer.
Ah.
So, again, the name sounds familiar. And here's probably the reason why the name sounds familiar, Lindsay Bloom. Because guess what? She was on Body Language for what appears to be 2 weeks, and she was on Super Password for 6 weeks.
Ah.
So there you go. She was a celebrity on a game show. That's how we know her.
Yep. Now we start to introduce more people into the Sanford-verse. Episode 11, Sissy and the Nephew. Aunt Esther's son Cliff comes to stay with Fred and falls fast for Eve's daughter Sissy.
Woo!
Yep.
I can't get enough of Greg oohing.
Nobody can.
So there's where we introduce Clinton Derrick's Carol into the Sanford verse. It doesn't necessarily continue with the next episode. He'll make appearances in the future, but look at this. Yet another 2-part episode. What is it with this series in 2-part episodes? They've done, they did 2, and then a 3-part episode to begin the whole thing, and we're not even through the first season yet.
No.
Episodes 12 and 13 have to do with Cal's diet. As we mentioned earlier, Cal is very heavy set, let's say that. And he obviously wants to better himself, which is good, don't we all? Cal is lonely and depressed about his weight, so Fred and Cliff put Cal on a diet and exercise regimen designed to build up his body and boost his sagging self-confidence. And that's actually part 1. Part 2 is Cal actually has his confidence restored. Fred takes him to a swinging singles bar where Cal meets lovely Katie, a meter maid. Hey, wasn't that what got Grady in trouble back on the Grady episode? Putting quarters in meters?
Giggity.
Giggity?
Yeah. By the way, played by Joy Garrett, who played Annie Myers on Star Trek The Next Generation.
It always goes back to Star Trek The Next Generation.
And a hooker on Night Court.
And a hooker on Night Court. You sold me. Thank you very much. The hooker on Night Court is all I had to hear.
Yeah.
It always goes back to Night Court and STTNG around here.
Damn right.
And Match Game Hollywood scores, but maybe that'll happen later on this episode. Who knows? So after this two-part episode where Cal hooks up with a hooker from Night Court, well, he did. I mean, Chico just said that. We have, maybe this is the night after or after the date. The benefit. No, this is the charity one I mentioned earlier. Not Friends with Benefits. This is the benefit. Sammy Davis Jr. agrees to perform at Eve's charity benefit for the children of Watts, but when Sammy doesn't show, Cliff, Sissy, Al, and Fred take to the stage and showcase their talents. So this isn't the first time that we've seen Fred take his talents to the stage within the Sanford and Son universe, if you will, since we were coining that as a term. In the last season of Sanford and Son, you actually had Fred, Lamont, Donna, and Bubba. They actually went on the Gong Show. Yeah, that was
the Gong Show.
The Gong Show was very big in 1976 and 77. So you sure as heck believe that NBC is going to put Sanford and Son, their big show, on their big morning show. There's no chance in hell that Fred Sanford was going on future installment 50 Grand Slam or future installment Stumpers. Though I pay to actually see him on either of those shows.
That would be awesome to see Tom Kennedy on Sanford and Son.
Yes, it would.
Or Alan Ludden. I'm just saying that. Yeah. I think that. That needs to be like that should have been done. Somebody needs to get Ed Begley Jr. and his TARDIS. We need to go back to 1976 and say, you're not going to see the Gong Show today. We're putting you on 50 Grand Slam or Stumpers, darn it. But enough hypothesizing and fan fiction over here. That's the end of season 1. The ratings never were as good as the original Sanford and Son, because Sanford and Son was like constantly top 10, and Sanford didn't even make the top 30 for the 1979-1980 season. So it was put on hiatus and retooled, and we talked about the retooling, the massive retooling, as it were, and some of the controversial episodes that came with it. And that starts with episode 1. And hey, guess what, guys? Let's start season 2 with another 2-part episode. Why not? We've had like 3 or 4 of them already.
Oh, yeah. I'm shocked. But this is my shocked face.
Let's have more 2-parters.
Hey, why not? Here comes the bride. Aunt Esther returns and moves in with Fred to watch over Cliff. Cal discovers that due to an error on Fred's marriage license, Fred was actually long ago legally wed to Esther. He was married to Aunt Esther?
What?
Oh my gosh. This is like where we would hear Fred Sanford say, "This is the big one, Elizabeth. This is the real heart attack." Him married to Aunt Esther?
Where was Maury Povich for this?
That was like about 7 or 8 years before he would have done A Current Affair. So he was somewhere, but he definitely was.
He was somewhere in DC.
He was still cutting his teeth in J school, is what he was doing.
Yeah.
But okay, so Cal discovers that due to an error in Fred's marriage license, Fred was actually legally married to Esther. To which I have to say, ew. Fred, Esther, and Cal drive to Fremont, Missouri, seeking a divorce, but must first plead their case before the county's irascible old judge who is resistant to tearing asunder what God has brought together.
Well, we should say that the judge was played by John Anderson, who portrayed Dr. Herbert Stiles on Dallas from 1983 to 1988. But he also was on MacGyver as occasional character Harry Jackson.
By the way, John Anderson, not that John Anderson who ran for president in 1980.
And not the... yeah, say it, Chico, because I was going to say it.
And not the John Anderson who supplemented his ESPN income by hanging out with John Henson and a set of big balls.
Oh, by the way, guys, did you hear that on the reboot of Wipeout? Apparently there's going to be like an invisible man hosting.
Hey, Nicole Byer is a delight.
Oh, I understand that, but I just don't understand the concept of why they're going to have an invisible host next to her.
Well, she's hosting by herself, I think.
Yep.
But I mean, there was supposed to be another name, but unfortunately, guys, I couldn't see the name.
Oh, Greg. Okay, and one other name we should add who portrayed a husband on part 2 of this episode is an actor named Phil Leeds. And again, may not recognize the name, but you'll recognize the face. Where you could have seen him, one of his last roles was actually as Judge Boyle on Ally McBeal back in 1997 and 1998, literally months before he died. He died in August of 1998. But also he made appearances as Uncle Mel on Everybody Loves Raymond in his first few years. He made a couple of appearances on Boy Meets World.
Oh, Boy Meets World. Something that we'll be talking about in a couple of months.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, no.
I
walked right into that one.
You totally did. Oh, he also played a character named Lou on Wings.
What?
I love Wings.
Yeah, I do love Wings. Guys, did you know Wings made Tony Shalhoub's career?
Trying to recover from that. The one place, and I knew I recognized him from here, he was on a number of episodes of course, it always goes back to this TV show, Night Court.
Nice.
He portrayed a regular named Norm. He portrayed a character called God Number 2 in one of the best episodes of the entire series, A Day in the Life. That's where I remember him from. A Day in the Life is an absolutely amazing episode of Night Court. One of the absolute best in the series. So that's where I remember him from. That's why I said that face rang a bell. He was on Night Court, specifically A Day in the Life. Okay, now that I'm done marking all over Phil Leeds being on Night Court.
And Wings.
Specifically A Day in the Life. I love Wings. It made Tony Shalhoub's career. Next up, oh, hey, look at this one. I think this might be the end result of finding out you're married to Aunt Esther. Fred has the big one. After years of crying wolf, Fred suffers an actual heart attack. Yep. Elizabeth, he's coming to see you.
Oh.
Except he didn't because, well, his doctor was James A. Watson Jr., who was yet another that guy from That Thing. He played Dunn in Airplane 2, the sequel. And if you actually remember him as Dunn from Airplane 2, the sequel, that means you had to have seen Airplane 2, the sequel, and you have my apologies.
Hey, do you know who else was in Airplane 2, the sequel?
Pat Sajak.
Oh, yeah, Pat Sajak was in it, and Art Fleming. But you know who else was in it?
Who?
Richard Gillian from Future Installment, Just Our Luck.
Nice.
I thought we were going to Kyle MacLachlan. I was expecting a Twin Peaks moment there.
No, Kyle MacLachlan's first film role wouldn't have been till David Lynch's Dune in '84.
Okay, I was just
can't wait for the reboot.
Oh, I can't wait for the eventual SNL parody when we have Chloe Feynman as Timothy Chalamet in Dune. Nah.
Hey, Hoppy and Smitty are back in the next episode. Cal the Coward. When a pair of crooks threaten Fred and Cal at gunpoint, Cal can only cower in the closet. Fred cooks up a caper to give Cal the chance to prove his courage and regain his self-respect.
There was a lot of alliteration there, a lot of C's.
Yeah, whoever wrote this was very creative.
Yeah, they were. Well, you know, if I had a gun stuck in my face, I'd probably cower like Cal a little bit too.
Would you cower in the closet with Cal?
That's almost like the old Animaniacs bit about eating beans with George Wendt.
Cower in the closet with Cal so you can cook up a caper to give Cal his confidence.
Do you want to take a survey? We should mention that apparently one of the robbers named Al was played by Jonathan Banks. And where you might have heard that name from, especially in... Okay, hold on. I think we had a Greg moment.
Okay, Greg, go.
Jonathan Banks was Frank McPike on Wise Guy.
Among other things, I was looking at a more contemporary reference.
Oh, he's on Better Call Saul.
He's on Better Call Saul. That's exactly what I was going to say. He plays Mike Ehrmantraut on Better Call Saul. Absolutely.
Yeah, but ever since we did Double Dare last week, I actually watched the first half of Wise Guy over the course of the week, and oh my God, Jonathan Banks is excellent on Wise Guy, I gotta say.
Nice.
And we should also add he played the same role from Better Call Saul on Breaking Bad. He also played Professor Hickey on Community.
What? I'm about to rewatch that.
Those are some of the shows that he's done over the last, well, again, that's like last 10 years. Yeah, Better Call Saul, Breaking Bad, and Community. I mean, those are three darn good shows to be a regular star on or a regular character on.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
And he going back with also the Wise Guy.
Mm-hmm.
And Wise Guy, too. Absolutely.
Which brings us to episode 6, Love is Blind. Fred invites Cliff and his new girlfriend Charlene to dinner, but Cliff neglects to tell Fred that Charlene is blind. Blind?
I didn't see that coming. Okay.
Blind. Yes. Ray Charles, Stevie Wonder, Did I Stutter Blind?
Well, again, I still didn't see that coming.
By the way, Charlene, played by the incomparable Debbie Morgan.
Oh, yeah. Again, one of those people who's done, like, seemingly everything over the last, obviously 40 years at this point if we're talking about Sanford. Mm. But, yeah, she's, again, as we would say, she is a known entity.
Quite known, quite entity.
Oh, absolutely. Yes, yes, yes.
Yep, she played Alfreda Royal in the Royal Family movies.
And also, since we can't get enough pyramid on here, we talk about all these celebrities on the $25,000 pyramid. Well, guess what, guys?
What, guys?
No, I was hoping you'd say she was on the $25,000
pyramid. Was she on the $25,000 pyramid?
No, she wasn't. She was just on Pyramid with Donny Osmond.
Okay.
Okay.
It's not exactly. Hey,
well,
you know what? It ain't the $50,000 pyramid, so I'm happy.
It's still in the pyramid family. Also, she appeared as a celebrity contestant on one of the Family Feud Celebrity Weeks back in 1985.
Probably because she was on so many of the ABC Love in the Afternoon soaps at the time.
Yeah, she was on the Guys and Dolls special week, and absolutely, given how many soap operas she was on at the time, Yeah, that's why she probably appeared on that week of Family Feud.
Mm-hmm.
But that takes us to episode 6, and this is one of those controversial episodes we talked about. Cal's mom.
Watch it with someone you love.
Cal's mother comes to visit, and among her baggage is bigotry against blacks.
Oh, no.
A special episode addressing racial prejudice. So here's our very special episode.
Yep. And of course, Cal's mom's played by Patsy Garrett, who is known as Mary in the Benji movies, but basically a that woman from That Thing sort of player. Very versatile.
Especially back in like the 60s and into the 70s. Was not a terribly big name after like the 70s. And actually, if you look at IMDb, she had only 2 other credits after this. But again, as Chico said, definitely a known entity, that person from that show. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And then that takes us to episode 7 called Gaslight. I hope it's not that type of gaslight. Suffering from a virus and delirious, Fred misunderstands an overheard conversation and now fears Cal is plotting to kill him.
Oh, no.
Da, da, da.
Uh-oh. Somebody call Hoppy and Smitty.
Oh, they make appearances in this episode. You better believe that they're on the case.
Oh, yeah.
But also another person who appeared as a doctor on this episode. How about this for another known entity, another name that we know from actually being on certain TV shows? Howard Morton.
The grandpa from the Munsters Today future installment?
Well, I was looking more for Officer Simpson from Give Me a Break.
Him too?
Yeah. Plus also, obviously we have to say it. He was also a celebrity on shows such as the $100,000 Pyramid, the $10,000 Pyramid, Future Installment, Celebrity Double Talk, and Super Password.
Nice.
We love our game shows around here.
Okay.
Shows.
Next is we do not even apologies. Hashtag sorry not sorry. Episode. The next episode. Freeway. The city is debating whether to run a freeway through Watts or the wealthy Corbin Hills neighborhood. Fred, Cal, and Cliff organize their neighbors and lead the charge to save their homes. Some of the neighbors in question are played by... Oh, look! We have, from future installment Sword of Justice, Burt Rosario. We have Ernest Harada, who was that guy from That Thing. He actually played Nakatomi on The Nut House, previous installment. And... Oh, look who's back! It's Whitman Mayo's Grady!
Yeah. Gotta love Grady.
Love Grady.
Just like Quagmire loves wings.
Love wings!
It made Tony Shalhoub's career. Well, one name I wanted to add, because it rang a bell, it sounded familiar. Playing the chairman, presumably the chairman of the company that's going to build the freeways, is Ivan Bonar. And again, that name rings a bell, and I don't know why it rang a bell, but he was on future installment The Colbys. But he also, again, was that guy from that show, I believe, because he did appear on shows including Punky Brewster and Alf, and he might have been on the final episode of St. Elsewhere, which we sort of previously covered when talking about the Tommy Westphal universe.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So he made the rounds, if you will.
He did.
Oh, and also, I should add, since I see it now, he also appeared on much previous installment Jennifer Slept Here.
Aww. Next up, Jury Duty. In this spoof of 12 Angry Men, Fred is the lone juror unwilling to cast a guilty verdict in a murder trial.
gosh, we haven't seen that done before. Not necessarily even just 12 Angry Men. Family Guy did it too in an episode I believe called 11 and a Half Angry Men, the half an angry man being Brian Griffin, the dog. Because somehow in Family Guy's universe, dogs perform jury duty. Don't ask.
Well, in fairness, Brian can talk.
Indeed.
Yeah, you're correct about that. And that takes us to Cal's Illegal Alien. 2 more episodes after this. Cal just met a girl named Maria, but she's an illegal alien hiding in the Sanford home during a rash of immigration raids in the area.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, this hits a little too close to home nowadays.
Just a little too close, yeah.
And hey, guess what? Hoppy and Smitty appear. Boy, I wonder what they're doing in this episode. They're looking for Maria.
By the way, Burt Rosario with another appearance. And of course, playing Maria was Gina Gallego, who is another professional, that lady from That Thing. But she did play Warden Smith for 2 years on Days of Our Lives, if you're looking for an example. And she did Jiminy Christmas. She was on everything.
That pretty much describes her. You're right about that. She has a lot of credits. Not many consistent roles, but you're absolutely right about that.
Oh, she was in the troupe on future installments Into the Night, starring Rick Dees.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Well, that takes us to the second to last episode, Private Lives. Fred and Eve have a lover's quarrel, with each vowing to bring a better date to the art gallery opening. Grady fixes up Fred with a bubble-headed bimbo named Bunny. Bubble-headed bimbo named Bunny. Okay.
This is not going to end well for...
No, it is not.
This can't end well with a bubble-headed bimbo named Bunny.
Yeah. Who's played by Alvernette Jimenez, who played Angie on Gimme a Break from 81 to 85.
And literally, those are the only 2 entries she has as an actress on IMDb. She played Bunny on Sanford. She played Angie on Gimme a Break. And then actually she does appear as herself on 3 episodes of a show we've put on our list called The Shape of Things. So we will talk about her at some point down the road. But that's her career. The Shape of Things, Sanford and Son, Gimme a Break. That's it. That's the list. That takes us to the final episode, To Keep a Thief. The 14-year-old boy who burglarized the Sanford home is ordered to work off the amount he stole.
He's the one who stole the nickels.
The quarters, yes. Yeah, where was he back in 1976? Was he at Grady's house? Or Grady's daughter's house, I should say. Yeah, he took the quarters. Fred and Cal hope to scare him straight, and this is the final episode of the series.
And by the way, the kid was played by Jeffrey Jacquet, who is known as Jeremy Saldino on WizKids, and for one crossover episode with Simon and Simon.
And he played a role of Eugene on Mork and Mindy for 10 episodes. So
I know that guy now.
Yeah, so not much of a career, but WizKids, that needs to be an entry if it isn't already.
It's already on there.
Okay,
there
cool.
You go. We're way ahead of the game. In addition, Howard Morton appears again in this episode just as a customer.
Oh,
okay.
So Howard Morton was getting paid before appearing on Gimme a Break.
One thing I want to note is, guys, do you know who was a writer on one of the episodes of this show?
Who?
Michael Moy.
Ooh.
He made the rounds. Oh my god.
That guy is a genius.
He's on everything.
Yeah, he wrote the teleplay for episode 6.
Okay.
He knows how to write himself a sitcom. And if I'm not mistaken, episode 6 of Season 1 or Season 2?
Season 1.
Okay.
That was the one where he fell for the con man's quick cure to buy that. You fell.
The Methuselah.
This doesn't sound familiar at all. Not at all. Some guy's falling for a con with a smooth name like Methuselah. Yeah, that doesn't sound familiar at all. Not even at all.
Well, I want to add one thing. This show, if you want to see it, you can. And I verified this morning.
Yes.
If you have the Crackle app on your device, your phone or your tablet, select episodes are available on that Crackle app.
Mm-hmm.
That's good.
And also, on top of that, there are DVDs out there of the entire series.
There are.
We're talking about a real release of the shows on DVD, not some sort of black market homebrew type of deal.
Yeah.
So they're out there if you want to see this.
Yep.
You thought I was going to say we're going to play eBay Prices Right. Well, we're not. I'm not going to do that. I could have done the DVD, but you know what? I'm going to be a nice guy. I'm going to just say, hey, don't spend your money on the DVDs. Download the free Crackle app. You'll have to sit through some ads. Enjoy it for yourself, or maybe not enjoy it.
Yeah.
So you're saying you're not going to play eBay Prices Right?
I'm going to walk right into this. Just get it out of your system.
Just do it.
I am. Two of you are bidding on a publicity still of Dennis Berkeley from 1980. Unfortunately, it has no real thing about it. It's just his publicity still from Sanford.
Okay.
From 1980.
Okay, who's going first?
Mike, you want to go first?
I'll say, since there's no blurb and it doesn't have Fred Sanford, I'll say $7.99.
$7.99. Greg.
I will go $11.
All right. You say $7.99. You say $11. The actual buy it now price for a picture of Dennis Berkeley is $27.99.
Who the hell would pay that much for him?
Oh, I have no idea. But hey, I found something else.
Oh, no.
Oh, yeah. Now, this one does have an actual blurb on the back of it. It's subject Redd Foxx, program Sanford, time NBC television network color cast Saturdays from 9 to 9:30. It's a picture of Fred Sanford with his bow tie and his top hat.
Oh.
So this
is
would
this
be
the tuxedo?
Is this the tuxedo? Yes.
Okay.
Greg, you go first.
$15.
$15, Greg. Mike?
You see, I think this is going to be higher because, as I said earlier, he doesn't dress in those types of outfits that much, especially on Sanford and Son or any of the related shows. I think, I'm not going to be mean, Greg. I respect you. I'm going to say $17.99.
Okay, Greg says 15. Mike says $17.99. The actual buy it now price of this picture of Redd Foxx, $19.99.
Ooh!
Wow. So it costs more for a picture of Dennis Berkeley than it does for a picture of Redd Foxx. Go figure. And he's looking rather snazzy in that tuxedo. I'm just saying.
Well, yeah, I said that earlier. When he wears a tuxedo, he looks good in it. He does not look like a junk man.
Nope.
Well, I can say this, though. You know who or what doesn't look like junk? Our website.
Yeah.
www.itwasathingontv.com. There, oh my gosh, we're like 6 episodes away from 100. We're going to be there in 3 weeks. And next week, oh my gosh, next week.
Oh my goodness.
I know Greg already has stuff to say about next week.
Oh,
yes, he does.
Well, the first episode, I'm going to have plenty to say.
Oh, God.
I think actually we'll all have stuff to say about both episodes because both of them brought a certain level of controversy, and both of them failed epically. And if that's not a word, I'm going to make that a word. And the thing is, neither of these shows is absolutely that old. They're within like 15 years old, but they're still worthy of being on the list.
But the first episode is a show that has become very memorable lately.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. The first episode is definitely something that has garnered some publicity, not necessarily positively, and yeah, both of these next episodes. Well, they're sort of interrelated, kind of, sort of. They're in the same sort of theme. But oh gosh, I know people have things to say on that next episode.
Oh, yeah.
But then after that, we're 4 episodes away from 100, and again, 100. We've got a lot of stuff that's going to be happening.
Oh.
We're not going to say the topic, but trust me, we got stuff to say about the topic for number 100, and there'll be some more new stuff coming. Like I said, Greg's got a little something in the works. And actually, that I think is related to the previous 100 episodes at that point, or the previous 99 episodes. I won't say what it is, but it's a brave undertaking that Greg is doing. So yeah, that's in the next 3 weeks. Oh my gosh. So well, until next week, thank you very much for listening about the Sanford verse for the last 2 episodes. We bring you back to your normal universe, where on Monday you'll be able to catch the next installment, episode 95 of It Was a Thing on TV. Thanks for listening.
Wow!
You went and did it. I might need that money tonight. I've never had pains like this before. Oh, this is the worst one I ever had, son. Oh, it's the worst one. This is a big one. I'm dying. You hear that, Elizabeth? I'm coming to join you, honey.